I think most of us would agree that one of the biggest shifts from Naruto to Boruto is the fact that villains in Naruto used to have all these intricate layers of backstory that shaped their humanity, and that for the most part the series did a really good job of making you see the human elements to them, especially when you read some of the data books and the light novels where characters like Hidan and Kakuzu get humanized by the lore. But when it comes to Boruto, the series, it has drastically taken a different approach. We've been living in this Boruto portion of the timeline for 9 years now, ever since the start with Naruto Gaiden, the 7th Hokage, and the Scarlet Spring, the bonus Naruto volume that Kishimoto drew, where Sarada was the main character for 10 chapters, and that was the start of us shifting away from villains who were more sympathetic and towards villains who, to be frank, they're just evil for the sake of being evil. But even with Shin, there were still some aspects that made you go, okay, I can understand him. He was a test subject by Orochimaru. Who wouldn't go crazy under those types of circumstances? However, with Boruto Naruto Next Generations and Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, we're seeing the story continue to go in the opposite direction of villains being evil for the sake of being evil and pursuing their own ambitions and self-interest, like we see with the current villain of the story, Jura, the Ten Tails personified in humanoid form and the leader of this growing Shinju army. Yet it's because his character isn't following the traditional model that so many Naruto fans have gotten used to, where his character is being spoon-fed in terms of what it is that makes him tick, and that there isn't a sobbing backstory for him. There are debates on whether or not he's a bad or a boring villain, which is why in today's newest Naruto Explained video essay, we're going to be taking a look at what it is that makes Jura's character tick, and show why the layers of subtle writing with the character has made Jura one of the best examples of answering the question of what it is to be human, which is a fundamental question that every author attempts to answer when writing a story, even when they aren't purposely spoon-feeding the answer by having a character literally say this is what it means to be human. Most importantly, this video will also highlight how Jura's character directly builds on a core question from Naruto's manga that gets overlooked because it isn't pushed in your face verbally via 10,000 flashbacks and sob stories. To be clear, I'm not going to be discussing Boruto villains as a whole, since that's truly worthy of its own video. So instead, we are only going to focus on Jura's character. So jumping right into it, Jura is a character in Boruto who provides a unique exploration of a Ten Tails entity evolving beyond its destructive nature, embodying humanity's deeper and spiritual and philosophical struggles. Here is a breakdown on how Jura's character and his journey reflects these themes. Theme 1 is going to be the awakening and breaking away from the Ten Tails' instinctual nature. Initially designed solely to consume Otsutsuki for the purpose of producing chakra fruits, Jura's awakening, it shifts and represents a shift from a primal animalistic drive to a increasingly self-aware, almost human state of consciousness. This journey embodies the classic struggle against predestination, something that Kashin Koji knows all about, as Jura is meant to act solely as a tool of destruction for the Otsutsuki so as to further their evolution and increase their power, without a second thought, because the Ten Tails were originally beings who were brainless and operated solely off of instinct and followed the will of their captors, the Otsutsuki clan. However, he breaks free of this by developing his own motives and desires, specifically seen in his fascination and with his reverence for the Shinju, the god trees, and the creation of new beings via the thorn soul bulbs, and even his own questioning of whether or not a Ten Tails incarnate can eat the very chakra fruit that he was created for the purposes of harvesting for another. Through these actions, Jura demonstrates a move towards human-like autonomy and decision-making, symbolizing the human capacity for self-transformation despite natural inclinations or external purposes imposed upon one by birth. His actions reflect a choice to transcend his initial programming, much like how humans seek to define themselves outside of societal or familial expectations, which, wouldn't you know it, that just happens to be a theme that Ikimoto said was the theme of Boruto Part 1, transcending outside of societal and familial expectations and bonds. Jura's actions of creating more Shinju is also a representation of the human elements of procreation and clan formation, two very human elements because it mirrors our own selfish desire as a species to protect ourselves, to pass on our genetics by finding the perfect mate to pass on strong genes to, and to ensure the survival of our bloodline, to ensure the survival of our species. Jura might not care for humans, but he behaves in a way that is very human-like in fashion when you view his character through this lens. But let's dive even deeper here. Jura's use of the Thorn Soul bulbs to create more Shinju, it mirrors the human drive to reproduce, create, and form communities. This reflects not only the biological impulse to survive, but also the innate desire to build legacies, family, and by extension, clans. By choosing to create rather than to consume indiscriminately, like we saw with the Claw Grimes in the first couple of chapters, Jura embodies a human-like need for legacy and continuation, preservation. This act of creation also marks Jura's character driven by desires beyond self-preservation and pure consumption, hinting at a deeper complexity and understanding of generational continuity. This makes even more sense when you realize that Jura isn't written as just being limited to the leader of the Shinju, but he is also serving the dual role of being a parent of the Shinju, just as a parent names their child when they are first born into this world. Jura has done the same thing with the Shinju, giving each of them a name as they are created. Just as a parent guides and nurtures their children as they find their path in this world, Jura does the same with the Shinju, prodding them to help them discover which human target they seek most to desire to gain their continued awakening, while Code is the one responsible for the creation of the awakened Shinju by Jura's own words. It is Jura who is the one who has created the newbie Ryu, and it is Jura who has taken on more of the parental role here with the Shinju. If anything, Code is more akin to being like a surrogate mother who carried the children of another couple and gave them up after their birth. However, the character becomes even more fascinating when you realize that his character builds on a theme from Naruto, which is the question about whether or not people are being used as tools. So allow me to explain further how the writing tackles the subject of defiance of nature as a tool versus Naruto's manga's reflection on shinobi and tailed beasts being used as tools. So Jura's defiance of its intended purpose, it parallels the journey of Naruto and other shinobi who were traditionally seen as tools of their nations and their employers, the people who went to the village and hired them for missions. In Naruto's story, shinobi are shown at times grappling with this dilemma of being weaponized by society, often being forced to fight wars and enact missions that serve the political goals of their village and their feudal lord rather than their own personal growth. By comparison, Jura's development mirrors this theme of resisting exploitation as he begins to explore desires and ambitions of his own beyond merely serving as a means to an Otsutsuki end, or in the case of Code, an Otsutsuki worshipper's desire to fulfill the goal of an Otsutsuki and transform into one himself by consuming a chakra fruit. Unlike the shinobi, however, Jura, his journey goes beyond service to another. His entire nature is designed around being a destructive tool. His defiance, therefore, is more existential. It's a rebellion against his very design, not just in the expectations of others. This adds a unique layer to his character, as he is not only breaking away from the external expectations, but the essence of his very existence, in particular, the reason for his existence. This brings us to the Biju. Since Jura is literally the Ten Tails in humanoid form, we have a direct contrast thematically to the other Biju and the way that Jura is being written as pursuing the freedom in his own way. Just as the Biju after the war, some of them decided to live out in the wild, not fully trusting humans won't use them as tools of war yet again, choosing to live in the wild instead of go back to the villages that once abused them, even though Naruto was now a pseudo Ten Tails Jinchuriki with vestiges of their chakra and seemingly a protector of them and a sign that the world was changing from the one where the Biju were treated wrongly. Jura's evolution also sets him apart from the traditional Biju, who were controlled and weaponized by various shinobi nations for centuries. While the Biju, they possess intelligence, their history is often one of subjugation when you look at it, with the ultimate aim of using their power in battle in the form of Biju being sealed into Jinchuriki. In contrast, Jura moves more towards autonomy in a way that no other Biju has done, seeking not merely freedom from control, but an entirely new existence altogether. By choosing to engage in creation through the creation of these awakened Shinju, and understanding rather than instinctual destruction that has no reason, Jura marks a path towards true self-identity, distancing himself from the fate of other tailed beasts who, for a long time, they remained trapped within the cycle of violence for many decades until Naruto came into the picture. This is also why Jura seeks only to attack those who stand between himself and those who are needed to accomplish his goals. Just as we saw Sasuke continuously update what it means to restore the Uchiha clan and continuously change his targets, Jura's doing the same thing. One of those goals for Jura, it is seeking out Naruto, a former Ten Tails Jinchuriki, someone who was in possession of chakra from all 9 Biju from a entirely different Ten Tails, and it eventually shifted to his daughter Himawari, who was in possession of the same Kurama who had used Baryon mode to save Naruto's life. It shows further evolution in Jura and his desire for knowledge, because part of his interest that he told Code that were more important than eating Kawaki right away, it all lies when you look at father and daughter, wanting to consume them at different points in the story, because consuming them, starting with the daughter, might lead to an understanding of a fellow descendant of a Ten Tails, because while he himself is the Ten Tails in a humanoid form, they are humans who have the power of the Ten Tails, either as Naruto is the Jinchuriki of the Ten Tails, or Himawari, who was born with a part of the power from a seed that came from a person who possessed the 9 Biju chakra, and she herself is now in possession of both halves of the strongest of the 9 Biju. Let's take a look at the symbolism in Jura going after Naruto first, before shifting to explaining why him going after Himawari makes even more sense. So Naruto's past as a Ten Tails Jinchuriki, it connects him directly to Jura, as both possess an intimate bond with the powers and the natures of a Ten Tails entity. By observing Naruto, by consuming Naruto, Jura was seeking an evolved reflection of himself. By being in contact and consuming someone who was a being who experienced the Ten Tails within himself, as having once possessed vestiges of the chakra of all 9 Biju, and having wrestled with overcoming the overwhelming power that comes from being a Jinchuriki of just the 9 Tails, and ultimately integrated it into part of his identity rather than letting it control him, which is why as a child of prophecy, Naruto was written as the boy who would know the 9 Biju by name, treating them like humans instead of like weapons, and further showcase his high compatibility because there was no tug of war here. It was a pure balance where both sides were willing. For Jura, understanding Naruto, by consuming Naruto, it allows him to seek understanding about what it means to evolve past being mindless, a destructive entity, because as we have seen in the past with multiple Jinchuriki, where there was not balance with the Biju, because there was not compatibility, they were removed from the Jinchuriki. And Naruto is someone who not only has mastered that power, but he has changed the nature of the Biju themselves, despite having only had minimal contact with them. Just as Jura, as a literal Ten Tails, is on a quest to change his own nature. Naruto's journey from Jinchuriki to respected Hokage, it symbolizes the possibility of transformation and coexistence with a Ten Tails, in particular the instincts rather than the complete submission to the power that comes from having possession of so many Biju. Right now, Jura has shown the ability to overcome his instincts as a Ten Tails and pursue his own intentions, but there is no balance right now. From Jura's perspective, Naruto represented a path towards becoming something more than a tool, more than a creature limited by its origins. It's almost as if Jura, by looking at Naruto, is examining a potential ancestor, if you will, who has already achieved something that Jura yearns for, a harmonious existence where one's true nature can coexist with purpose and self-directed growth. This, by extension, is why there's this fascination with Himawari. While she is not someone who has gained the power of the Ten Tails, she is in possession of Kurama, and she is someone who has a higher sync rate with Kurama than Naruto ever had. She is someone born with both part of the chakra, a new life in of itself. And for Jura, the prospect of consuming someone who has been born of a new generation and inherited part of that power, who is innocent and yet still so full with potential, it is the allure. It's like a junkie chasing a high. Jura's thirst to learn more is that needle in his arm. Himawari is the drug that he's putting into himself. This is akin to the human need to understand one's descendants, seeking knowledge about what traits, powers, and influences that can pass on and evolve. Himawari embodies the blending of Naruto's legacy and strength with something new and unique, something that gets overlooked when people talk about her having Kurama's power. They focus on this is a disservice to Naruto when they miss this very fact I just told you. And Jura's fascination with Himawari represents his desire to understand how individuals can build upon their origins, evolving over generations while forming new identities. This curiosity is almost familial in nature. Much like how humans seek a sense of lineage and legacy, Jura is trying to understand what it means to pass on power, essence, possess power, and the purpose beyond one's own immediate existence. Yet that's why Boruto is such a major threat to him. Boruto, the brother of Himawari and the son of Naruto. Jura's fear of Boruto as a threat to the Shinju and existential anxiety is a major theme that the story is setting up in a subtle way. However, like a lot of Boruto's writing, again, it does not spoon feed it to you, but instead it drops breadcrumbs and expects you to follow the trail and come to the conclusion on your own. Jura's perception of Boruto as an existential threat to all Shinju, it symbolizes the fear of humanity that it often experiences when faced with uncontrollable forces that threaten its existence. And much in the same way that humans fear the possibility of a catastrophic event or a powerful force beyond their control, such as natural disasters, powerful enemies, even aliens and asteroids coming to Earth, Jura views Boruto as a disruptor of his Shinju-based ecosystem he is trying to build, and consequently, his own purpose that he's trying to find. This highlights the conflict between a creature's desire to protect its own existence and the inevitable encounter with entities that threaten it, much like human fears of extinction or loss of cultural legacies. This is why Jura sees the rapid growth of Boruto and how he almost destroyed Hidari in one attack and viewed him as too dangerous to be allowed to live. Jura didn't even go near Boruto, choosing the calculated path of shooting him from a distance where he can go undetected and without fear of being harmed. While Boruto isn't stronger than him, the one thing that Jura understands is something that fans tend to forget. The strongest doesn't always win every fight, not unless the level of power between these two characters is too high for any skill or hacks jutsu to be able to overcome. We haven't seen Boruto use karma yet, and we haven't seen Jura use the full power of his body in the story yet, so we can't gauge a true gap in their power, but Jura's actions, they are telling. Boruto is a threat, and Kashin Koji ultimately tells us in the end, the most likely scenario is that Jura kills Boruto if they don't find a way to change this possible outcome, which is what Kashin Koji is attempting to help Boruto accomplish. This is also why Jura has ordered the death of the helper of Boruto, because he's evolved enough to know that someone might have godly assistance when it comes to Boruto, and that assistance right now is coming in the form of Kashin Koji, who is using one of the powers of an Otsutsuki god to assist Boruto, and Jura's put the pieces together that something beyond human capability is helping Boruto, which in this case is Kashin Koji's 10 directions, and that is why Boruto is such an existential threat. He is basically a clan leader looking out for his clan as Shinju. He is basically a parent looking after his growing family as Shinju. He is basically a scientist trying to eliminate a disease or a global event that would destroy humanity. Boruto is a direct threat to his survival and the survival of those that Jura created. This goes even deeper when you look at how Jura's quest for knowledge and freedom has direct connections to Buddhism and philosophical paradoxes, which longtime viewers know, you hear me say it all the time. Naruto and Boruto lean heavily into Buddhism. Jura's drive to consume a chakra fruit to evolve, it parallels Buddhist themes, where knowledge and enlightenment are pathways to freedom and transcendence. This evolution can be seen as his path toward a higher understanding, reminiscent of the Buddhist journey towards moksha, or liberation from the cycle of rebirth, the cycle of samsara that so many of Naruto's six past powers are rooted in. Yet Jura's name, meaning 10th demon, introduces a fascinating paradox. While Buddhism advocates a release from desires and the cycle of rebirth, Jura's quest to evolve by consuming the chakra fruit implies a drive that goes directly against detachment, instead embracing an insatiable hunger for more power and knowledge. That explains why Jura is shown reading so many books. This contradiction embodies the tension between desire and spiritual liberation, reflecting the Asian philosophical balance of yin and yang. Jura, embodying destructive potential, is seeking to balance his nature with creation, autonomy, and evolution. However, his method, driven by consumption, ironically distances himself from the peaceful harmony advocated by these very teachings, illustrating an inner conflict between his nature as a ten-tails and his drive for self-determined growth, which is in line with the requirements that Databook 4 tells us are required for one to be given access to six past power from Hagoromo, because Naruto was able to overcome that samsaric cycle. Not my words, literally the Databook's words. Again, six past power is not the same as six past sage mode. In essence, Jura's character, in particular his character arc and the subtle nature to the writing of his character, it portrays him as a complex, multifaceted entity whose journey represents an evolution from animalistic instinct to self-aware individuality, challenging purposes and boundaries set by his existence. His contrast to the traditional Biju and the parallels to the human experiences of existential fear and desire for legacy, combined with philosophical and spiritual illusions, it positions Jura as one of Boruto's most symbolically rich characters when you take all that into account. If you enjoyed this video essay, click here to watch more video essays from Naruto Explained, or click here to watch my newest video for my Anime Explained channel, where I discuss non-Naruto content.